I've been documenting wild places for decades. I'm always struck by the concentration of diversity in this beautiful, pristine bay. I'm Wolfe. Join me on this journey to the edge. I've been coming to Glacier Bay for a long time, and every time I come back here, I discover something new. The Ice Age really had a profound effect on this region of Southeast Alaska. All the great islands run north and south. All the channels largely are running north and south. Glacier Bay, only 200 years ago, had 4,000 feet of ice, and today there's just remnant glaciers. I'm being joined by Greg Green, a wildlife biologist who has extensive knowledge in the marine ecosystems of Southeast Alaska. What I love is just the richness of this environment that we're traveling through. Not only do you have the spectacular glaciated mountains, the really intact forests, but you got all the animals that thrive in these wild waters. All up and down the West Coast, and especially true in Southeast Alaska, cultures use totem poles to really symbolize the animals that they revered and respected, the eagles, the orcas, and the raven. Right now we've got two whales and they're still up, and in a second or two it's going to be a nice shot because the spray will come straight up, and any second now they're going to do it, and when they do it I'm going to get the shot. 1, 2, there we go, beautiful, and the second one will come up, there we go. Wow, there's really a lot of activity here. We're in the midst of a huge group of humpback whales. That's so beautiful right now with the calm water, the even light, the way these spouts just really hang in the air. It almost looks like a watercolor painting. And the sound of it is so beautiful. Very nice. That's spectacular. Just to have that dark green body of water, the way the spray is really distinguished from the dark background, and then that graceful way these huge animals just enter the water. When do they start heading south, and where are they going?
These whales winter in Hawaii, and they don't feed there. That's where they go to breed. That's where they go to have calves. And then they come back here to feed, to forage in this rich waters.
What's the status of the humpback whale? Are they endangered?
Well, they're still classified as an endangered animal and under the Endangered Species Act, but the populations here are definitely increasing. Humpback whales are coming back in the North Pacific.
It's an animal that you only get glimpses of part of their body until they actually breach. They usually breach when they come back to the surface. And usually when they get into the rhythm, they come to the surface 3 or 4 times, but that first time they come back up after sounding or diving, they come up with such force that they can launch their bodies right out of the water. These whales should be coming up any second. I got it. That is amazing. That was fantastic. Just a sequence of 2 or 3 shots, and there's more coming up right now. This is a great place. There's so much action right here. The water is very turbulent and it mixes up the fish, the herring, the krill. Consequently, we got cormorants, gulls, eagles, sea lions, all vying for the same food. Really great for the heart and for the mind to see an environment that is largely intact. The forests are all the way from the top of the ridges all the way to the water line. No clear cuts, no roads, no buildings along the shore. This is a beautiful forest with the Sitka spruce and hemlock. How old would you think these trees are?
Well, we know. This is forest began about 200 years ago when Captain Vancouver was here and the glacier just receded past.
Wow, that's amazing. In 200 years, this whole forest was established. How is this forest actually being affected by global warming?
Well, one of the things that we are seeing is the decline of Alaskan yellow cedar, and that seems to be as a result of decline in snowfall levels.
So what's taking the place of yellow cedar?
Well, at this stage, nothing. We're waiting to see how global change and climates are going to affect all of Southeast Alaska.
Nothing stays the same.
Nothing at all.
I love working in the rainforest, and if it's raining, I just adjust to it. And the subjects here are many and varied. There's some beautiful lines, abstract details. This becomes now my subject. Right now I'm zeroing in on just a few raindrops in the circular patterns that are really spiraling out. It becomes a really nice pattern, really nice study of light and dark. I've got a really nice shot here of fungus and dripping moss, and it's a great change from shooting the grand landscapes of glaciers and mountains to come into this forest. It's a calming effect on the mind. It's such a soft environment, such a quiet environment, and now I'm shooting a very quiet, soft subject. Dundas Bay is part of the national park, and it's a great habitat for black bears that come out of the forest in hibernation in the spring. They eat this very succulent grass. This is the sign of a bear. Okay, the tops of this grass is all cut off from where it's eaten, and it's really pressed the grass as he's walked up this creek. And the fact that the grass is still pretty much bent means he's come through in the last day, maybe in the last couple hours. This is a pretty fresh bear track here. He drew a line from one toe across here. If the toe is below this line, it's a black bear. If it's above, it's a grizzly. And just the sheer size of this, if this was a grizzly bear track, it'd be a pretty young bear. But this is a medium-sized black bear. There's a bear not too far away from here. It's taken one look at us, and it's cut across what I think is these alders, and it might come right out over here. So if I can anticipate the direction it's moving, we might be able to get a good shot. So let's walk over here. It's just cut through these bushes. There it is, right there. Stop. It doesn't really have great eyesight, but it sees us and is wondering what we are. These bears now are sharing their environment with the brown bear or the grizzly. So they're much more apprehensive about other shapes walking around. We're gonna move. I think he might come out one last time at right where this little creek comes out of the forest. It might be a good shot. This is a nice situation because this bear is nice and relaxed. We're
getting our shots, we moved slow, and every time it stopped, we stopped. And consequently, we've been able to get up close without really pressuring the bear. So now the bear's relaxed, eating grass, I'm getting my shots.
One of the iconic animals here in Southeast Alaska are the orcas. They're very hard to predict, and often you never see them. What we try to do with these orcas is discern the direction they're heading, then go way ahead, and then the choice is for the orca to either come towards us or give us a wide berth. And often they come right next to us as long as we're not chasing them. With the orcas, unlike the humpbacks, they get into a rhythm and they stay on the surface. They're a much smaller animal and they're not as capable as the humpback to stay underneath the surface. So we have a higher likelihood of predicting the distance and the direction that these orcas are going. They're only above the surface for a split second, and I don't want to miss that. And I didn't. As we entered Glacier Bay, it's really interesting to see how the glaciers have carved and shaped the land. Not only the fjords, but many of the islands are resistant columns of rock that really rise out of the ocean bottom. There's just so much wildlife in this really rich environment. And right now there's an eagle flying, beautiful, being trailed by gulls. Lot going on right now. Here's a whole colony of kittiwakes flying in front of the cliffs. Saw a peregrine falcon earlier, and we've got a mountain goat with a very young kid and a sub-adult, all right on the same cliff right in front of us. I think what happens is that these cliffs really absorb a lot of the heat from the sun, and consequently the snow melts off really soon in the season and exposes the sedges and the lichens that they really love to eat. Very chilled out. That's what's nice about photographing these mountain goats, is very relaxed, really a nice looking animal looking straight at us right now. You can see how that powerful hump on the back is really the center for the muscles that enable it to go straight up and down. This is a nice opportunity with a mother and two cubs. The babies are so cute. And the very fact that we're drifting up so slowly, the mother's curious. She's watching us. She's eating barnacles right off the rock. Bears are such omnivores. They'll eat the barnacles, they'll eat grass, they'll eat salmon, berries. It's great to hear the baby cry. Almost like a human baby right now. They are so young, they haven't been out of the den very long. She's a great looking mother. Oh, nice moment. The babies are just touching nose with mother. Oh, that's as good as it gets right there. We're easing up onto this colony of northern sea lions on the north side of this island. These sea lions have found just the perfect slope of rock where they can easily carry themselves up out of the water and relax and rest. This is known as a rookery. I'm going to try to get an establishing shot of the colony, and then I'll be looking slowly across the colony for individuals that might be interacting, a male and a female, or even two males that be fighting over a female. Each male basically can stand each other when they're 15 or 20, 30 feet apart. They get too close to each other, they start to still each other's females, and they start fighting. This is the perfect light conditions for photographing these guys. If it was even brighter or overcast, their big bulky bodies would cast shadows over other animals. But with this even light, it really allows us to make sense of the entire colony of northern sea lions.
As we head further up the bay towards the glaciers, the terrain gets rockier and the water becomes much colder. The glaciers that feed fresh water into Glacier Bay are retreating at an amazing rate. It's a natural process, but it's being accelerated by global warming.
I love this environment. It's just like kayaking through a huge watercolor painting to me. It's hard to fathom that this entire fjord was carved out by huge glaciers, much, much larger than these tiny little guys now, these tidewater glaciers. 200 years ago, how deep do you think the ice was right where we are?
Probably somewhere between 4,000 and 6,000 feet thick.
Can you imagine in 200 years that 4,000 feet of ice has melted? That's extraordinary. You know, it's amazing that this landscape is in such rapid transition. This snow has been locked up in this ice for hundreds of years, and now it's about to calve into this fjord, melt, and once again join the water cycle. It's really interesting also to see how the oldest ice is the clearest ice, and it's on the bottom layer of a glacier. And it's really compressed hard and clear, almost like the way diamonds are formed. Look at that wall over here that looks just like a wall of jade. It's so beautiful. I'm so privileged to be able to come into an environment like this and see things that most people don't have an opportunity to see. Just this out-of-worldly location is extraordinary. The ice that's got locked up in this glacier may have fallen in the form of snow hundreds of years ago. And now at the terminus, it's calving off and ultimately melting out. And it's overwhelming when you think of the scale of the human in relationship to a wall of ice that may be 300 or 400 feet high. I love photographing this environment because it's so abstract with the colors, the lines, the textures of this great glacier. It's a frightening environment, it's a dynamic environment. Ultimately, it's a fascinating environment for the camera and for my imagination. The deep blues of the light passing through the ice crystals really translate well on film. I love shooting landscapes where the sense of scale is obscured. You really rely on the abstract. As my eye adjusts to this dynamic landscape, I find more and more shots to shoot. And right now, I'm concentrating on just the reflections of these very circular icebergs with their very subtle gradients of white all the way to deep blue. Right now I'm making this tiny little iceberg really dominant in the frame, and then the reflections of the icebergs across the water really is a nice soft backdrop. So foreground, background, very surreal landscape. It's all coming together. And just verifying in the back of my camera, and I can see that I'm getting exactly what I want. The glaciers are still active today, and it's among the most exciting things that I've ever seen anywhere on Earth. To see a glacier calve into these deep blue waters is a really thrilling sight. It's like explosions going off in front of you. It's both frightening, but also extremely intriguing and exciting to see. So much of this area has been protected over the years with great legislation, setting aside Glacier Bay and all the regions around it for protection forever. And yet, the great unknown is what impact will global warming have on this very fragile ecosystem? With the warming of the Earth, what will happen to the populations of birds and sea creatures that live and abound in these waters? This is something we don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I've been traveling to wild places for decades. There's no better place on Earth to view these massive bears than Katmai National Park. I'm Art Wolfe. Join me on this Travels to the Edge. The Katmai coast is the largest intact, uninhabited coastline left in North America. Once you get up in the air and you start to fly along this coast, you really see the extent and the variety of the land formations. This is a great place to come, whether you're a photographer or a naturalist or somebody that just wants to see nature raw and pristine. Hi.
Nice to meet you. All right.
Finally, at last, we're here. Where are we right now?
We're anchored up right here.
I'm joining bear expert Derek Stoneroff and naturalist Brad Joseph to explore this wild coast.
One thing, Art, that they try to do in Alaska is identify habitats that are critical, and these sedge flats are really, really critical habitats for the survival of brown bears.
When people think of bears and they see this really wild peninsula, they really think it's the mountains and the forests. That's the reason the bears are here, but it's really about what the ocean brings to them. I can't wait to get out there and see these bears.
All up and down the Katmai coast, there's these tidal flats with sedge grasses growing. It's a big drawing part for the bears, and if these meadows were not here, the bears wouldn't be down here at this time of year. They're the first areas to green up.
So these bears will spend how much of the day just eating food?
Differing in amounts, but you can expect to see some bears down here all the time. They might eat 16, 18 hours a day. A lot of these guys might double their body weight. These sedge meadows are real important for bears for social behavior and meeting each other.
He seems awfully interested in her.
Yeah, it's mating season. He's definitely following her around, and she's definitely tolerating him at a much closer range. That's one way to tell if you see a mating pair.
I'm walking gently, I'm in the right. The sun is up in the sky. I'm ready for for romance. My heart is full of joy. I'm strolling away, far from the bus. Don't have no hesitation. I'm gonna rejoin my love and start a cozy home.
From where I'm standing, I can count 8 bears. And they're constantly popping up and disappearing as they go up and over these little rises. And it makes it exciting because you never know where one's coming up.
Bears aren't grazing animals. They have a very difficult time digesting grass. These are very specific kinds of sedges, and it's only in these little pockets right here in the intertidal areas that these sedges grow. The other thing that happens when these really high tides come in fact, it's the second highest tide in the world here, it floods these meadows with salt water, brings in a lot of seaweed and algae and things.
In a month, this river could be filled with salmon.
Absolutely. It's perfect timing for the bears because just as soon as these sedges go to seed, the salmon show up. It's absolutely designed to be the perfect habitat. There's always food supply for these bears.
These bears don't have to go too far afield. They get their salmon, they get their vegetables, their salads, and it's a huge buffet for these bears. Right behind us is another bear. We got 3 right in front of us, and I'm not too concerned about the one behind us, are you?
Oh, I'm keeping an eye on them. They're doing their thing. We're sitting here doing ours. It's okay. We're not the focus of their attention.
From this distance, it's pretty obvious for me to tell female now that I've been around these bears for a couple of days, but from a distance, what are the main things that you look for?
Females tend to be blonder, but there's a lot of exceptions with color. But it's mostly body proportions and how they're built. They're built fairly differently. The males have a longer neck, longer legs, longer body, and although their head is much larger, from a distance it looks a lot smaller in proportion to the rest of the body. The biggest females might get to 800-900 pounds. The largest males could get to, 1,600.
It's amazing how close they're coming to us, and the fact that we're sitting low and talking quietly, they just seem not afraid.
Yeah, this is really the right way to handle being close around these bears. We're in a submissive position. We're sort of neutral, we're non-threatening.
Grizzly bears and brown bears are one and the same bear.
Yes, they're definitely the same species.
These are the same bears that everybody fears in the Rockies, the great predator, the dangerous animal, and look, it's just like a cow in a field right in front of us.
These bears haven't been hunted since 1920. The instinctual fear of people has been washed away in generations of sort of a peaceful coexistence. If we treat them with respect, they treat us with respect.
This trail looks almost like a bear freeway to me.
Generations and generations of bear traffic, just over and over, have just worn these grooves. These trails are like super highways that just interconnect all of the drainages and the food sources the bears use. It's just a very complex network of trails all up and down the Katmai coast.
So obvious how they keep their feet into each track on left foot and right foot, and I have no idea what the significance of that is, and you probably don't either.
No, it's one of the mysteries of bears.
Well, let's follow this trail and see where it leads us.
We're right in the heart of the largest population of protected bears in the world. 4,000 to 5,000 in this area.
4,000 to 5,000 brown bear.
Yes,
Wow.
they're all within the national park, all protected.
It's absolutely miserable out right now. It's cold, it's windy, it's rainy, it's bear weather. There's a mother with a cub, and they're just wandering around, and we've done a couple things to help us get shots. One of which is we're facing away from the wind and the rain. The other thing is we've gotten low, and if we're really quiet and we move slow, they're likely to come very close to us. We're not approaching them, we're gonna allow them to approach us. She may go right back up on that ridge. This is good. This is gonna be great. This cub and this mother are on this high ridge overlooking this plain with at least 13 adult bears. So she's a little reticent to getting down low. She wants to know where all bears are because occasionally boars will take a cub. And so she's very cautious. She's looking around and she puts her head up, getting a really nice shot. This is a long ways I'm shooting, probably at least a half a mile away. 1,000 millimeter in overcast conditions, very slow shutter speed, but a great shot.
That's an awesome shot. It just really shows the power of the bear and just the whole body.
I've photographed bears for 20 years. I've never gotten a shot where the bear is standing straight up like a human, staring straight at me. And it's really looked threatening, but in reality, it's just standing up to get a better look.
As soon as low tide rolls around, the bears appear out of nowhere. The bears know when low tide is. I don't know if it's by smell or just internal timing, but they're very in tune with the tides and the timing of the tides.
Hallow is famous for its clam-eating bears. Off to your right, there's a bear over there, and you can see behind her, she started to dig. There's piles where she's dug a hole and then moved on to the next one. I think each hole's probably a clam.
What I really like about this shot is the simpleness of the landscape. You can see all the claws, the feet, there's just nothing impeding our view of this beautiful bear, and it's extraordinarily beautiful with the long golden fur just blowing in the breeze. I love the background, the light, and the thing that I like the most is the fact that it's totally unaffected by our presence. It's a very candid way of photographing a wild animal in a beautiful, simple landscape.
Brown bear is superbly equipped. It's a digging bear. Of all the 7 species of bears, these are the diggers. He's got this great big hump, which is really a big hunk of muscle, and they've got extra long claws. If you compare a bear claw to a polar bear claw or a black bear claw, they're shaped differently, but they're meant for digging.
Whenever I'm photographing a new environment, I love not only to shoot the grand landscape, but also the intimate details. I've found a really nice shot of washed up kelp and seaweed. I've made it important by zooming in with a macro lens. I love doing that. I love revealing things that people often pass by.
The diversity along this Katmai coast is incredible. Every time we turn around, there's a new species. Right now, I've got tufted puffins on a beautiful lichen-covered rock. These are beautiful little birds. They're almost comical. They look like clowns. I'm using a 1,000mm lens with a 1.4, which is the equivalent now of a 1,400mm lens to bring them in and to get a satisfying view. Behind me, there's a bald eagle nest literally in the grass. And I've situated this camera slightly above so I can take in the dark background of the distant mountains. What I'm waiting for and what I'm hoping for is a bald eagle literally landing at the nest with its wings spread out. With follow focus, I can just stay on this bird. Waiting for an hour and I can see it just coming. It's about a couple hundred yards off, but as soon as it gets close. That's nice, with her laying on her back legs. She's going down, she's going down. That is funny. Beautiful female. Looking up at us, gonna sit down, gonna sit. I love it, now it's gonna fall, 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 fall. Ah, nice behavior. Look at how it's just playing with its paw. It is so roly-poly. It looks and exhibits behavior like a panda. I love this. Look at that. Scratching. It's hard to stay up. Whenever I'm shooting a bear or any animal that is exhibiting some comical behavior like this bear right now, it really affects the emotions of the people that ultimately look at the photos. Often one single salient photo that really connects with people is a very effective way of winning their support. That's a really big boar over here. His name is Snaggletooth.
You can see that canine that sticks out. His jaw was broken in a fight, probably a little female during the mating season. Oh wow, he's got blood on his shoulders. He must have gotten in a mating fight.
He was running around and there was two males over there and they may have gotten a fight.
Yeah, he got bit.
powerful stuff to watch.
Yeah, it can be pretty brutal sometimes. It's that basic evolutionary force to mate. It's very strong in these bears, and the difference between mating and not is a very powerful force for these guys, absolutely.
And it was amazing to watch the female. She's just sitting back watching these two guys fight over her.
She wants to see who her new boyfriend's going to be.
God, that was frightening. I'm still just shaking from that.
Yeah.
That was a good moment. When I'm photographing a mother and a cub like this, it's usually when they come together, there's some sort of quick interaction. Momentarily, they come together, they touch noses, or the baby sometimes cuddles up against the mother's chest. Those are the moments I try to click. And it's often just anticipating when they're coming together, being ready for it, like now. Oh, that's nice. The baby is just relaxing and rolling, just doing what little babies do. Ah, that is so cute.
Play is so important for bears, and they play throughout their lives. Mothers play with their cubs, and young bears play with other bears. Even sometimes big males play with other big males. It's a rich part of the bear's life. They're an incredible, incredible creature, and they're capable of extraordinary behavior.
It's so nice to see these animals just playing, just sheer enjoyment of playing and interacting. And they obviously are the same age. These are two females that just are having a great time. Just great to watch this. They look like sumo wrestlers in fur coats, just full of energy, full winter coats. They couldn't look any better than this. Oh, nice move, great behavior, wow. That's a takedown and a pin. That's 4 points right there. To have a bond of trust between a wild animal and a human being in their environment, it just makes you feel good. You feel like you're connected to the whole ecosystem here.
Coming out here with these bears, sitting here, making eye contact with them unarmed on their terms. I've been all over the world looking at wildlife and different things, and I really think it's the greatest wildlife experience on Earth. It's one of the world's greatest jewels.
You live and you work in a great environment, don't you?
Yeah, it's in my blood.
This is a special, special place.
It's high summer here in the Brooks Range, in the heart of the Arctic Wildlife Refuge, and the landscape is teeming with life. I'll be rafting down the Congaccut River to the vast and beautiful coastal plain.
I'm Art Wolfe. Join me on this episode of Travels to the Edge. Miles north of Anchorage, the mountains of the Brooks Range stretch west to Canada's Yukon Territory. The North Slope and its rivers drain onto the vast coastal plain and into the Arctic Ocean. The Arctic National Wildlife Refuge lies in the northeast corner of this region. Whenever I fly north to the refuge, I make a stop at a remote Gwich'in community on the southern edge of the Brooks Range. In Arctic Village, I had a great chance to talk to Sarah James, a Gwich'in Indian activist, about caribou, wilderness, and the importance of the Arctic plain. How important are the caribou really to the Gwich'in?
Oh, we're caribou peoples. Food are on our table, and it's our tools, it's our clothing, and it's our story, it's our song, it's our dance. Solely depend on caribou and make us who we are. And when that gets disturbed, then we lose our way of life.
Why is it so important to keep the coastal plain intact?
Every year for thousands of years, the caribou go to that coastal plain because the food is there and it's a safe place for them. And it's just like a woman, you know, when we have our child, we want it quiet, clean, and private. And that's what it is for the caribou there. And we want to keep it that way. That's our responsibility.
I'm joining river guide Bob Dietrich and naturalist Nicole Whittington Evans on this Arctic journey. We're heading to the north slope of the Brooks Range to pick up the Congo-Cut River. From there, we'll float through some of the most remote wilderness in North America.
So where are our best chances, do you think, to see the caribou?
Well, they're moving across the coastal plain. A lot of them kind of north of these little mountains here, but a lot of them come right on through this pass, which is sort of a shorter cut.
The richness of this area is incredible.
All right.
All right.
Hey, everybody in.
Whew, that's fun.
Off like a herd of turtles.
This is what I love. When you first get on the river, the beginning of the day, and you just float in every fold, every bend in the river reveals something new. This is exciting. It's a great way of seeing the Arctic because we're so quiet as we float down. Come around a bend, there could be caribou on the bar. 4 adult sheep up on the ridge ahead, and this is just the beginning. Unlike a lot of what people do in the lower 48, which is get on rivers for the sport, this is more of a transportation through a wild country.
They're so wide open, so you can see wildlife for long distances. These mugulls nest on these gravel bars, and they probably have chicks out there now, so they get pretty aggressive when you get near the chicks. Like that one gave us a warning shot.
Yeah.
Sometimes they really scream at you and dive bomb you.
Here it comes, incoming.
Here he comes. Oh!
There's a lot of fossils, a lot of shells fossilized shells within the rock along the shore. So this was all at one time an ocean bed, wasn't it?
Yep. You can sort of see all those layers.
It's incredible. I'm just so anxious to see our first caribou.
It's amazing how the large animals can just disappear in this, what seems to be wide open country.
Yeah, with this low valley here and that low valley there, it looks like a natural funnel for migrating caribou.
Wow, look at the striation in the ice and the blue color. It's fantastic.
Right from here, I can see blue, 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 and then the mountains right above, and it makes this ice look like 40 feet tall. So it's just the juxtaposition, which is great. Let's just pull over and get up on top of the ice and kind of scout where we should be going. Just jumped off the raft to explore this off ice, which is one of the really primary elements of the Arctic landscape. It builds up over the winter months as the river freezes, and each subsequent freeze adds another layer until it goes from the bottom all the way to the top. Some of this off ice will be as deep as 12 feet, which is pretty extraordinary stuff. As I hike along the rivers that flow out of the Brooks Range, I can find a lot of evidence of this ancient seabed. Many, many rocks hold fossils. Chitons and other crustaceans are really obvious in these rocks. And like everything else that I do, I love to photograph various scales, from the grand landscapes to the wildlife that live in the Brooks Range. And now I'm going to concentrate on doing macro shots of just these shells, these fossils locked in the rock. Up in the Arctic, as with every location I'm traveling these days, climate and the warming of the Earth is changing in profound ways. And in the time that I've traveled in the Arctic, looking back maybe 25 years, I've seen now entire microclimates of trees sprout and grow. We're looking at balsam poplars growing in ravines that were once barren. Wow, this is a beautiful forest. I would never have predicted this is on the north slope of the Brooks Range.
Yeah, I know of very few pockets like this up here at all.
There's flowers. These little white flowers are beautiful. The lupin are very, very pretty.
One of the interesting things about these flowers this far north is that we're not experiencing a lot of bees buzzing around us and pollinating the flowers, and that's because the temperatures are too cold often for bees to actually function. And so the alternative in a climate like this is that mosquitoes pollinate flowers like this.
What I like about being in here is when you're on the Arctic slope, everything's so open and austere and beautiful. But for the mind and the spirit, it's kind of nice to have a change of pace. This is a wonderful place to be right now. There's an Arctic hare that's about 15 or 20 feet away under some dead branches, so it feels secure. The only thing I see moving right now is the whiskers. It's just, and occasionally the ears are moving from the mosquitoes, but otherwise, if it just stays still, you don't see them and they're quite happy. That's nice. My mission always is to show things. I mean, I not only want to get a shot of a lot of caribou and the big megafauna, but it's also the little things.
Great to be back on the river.
Yeah.
We're lucky to be traveling down the Conga Cut because it's actually designated all the way to the ocean as a narrow strip of wilderness out into the coastal plain.
Gonna stop on the far side of that creek. Oh, oh my God. We saw these sheep from the raft, and we've beached the raft and walked a couple hundred yards across the sandbar to get closer. And it's just a really nice view of a couple young males and a couple females and a baby.
Very casual, very relaxed. The Dall sheep is the only wild white sheep in the world. They really are uniquely adapted to this vertical landscape, and in fact, it's why they survive, because they are chased by wolves frequently, and so they don't venture too far from these cliffs above the river. We've just seen a herd of bull caribou. It's our first herd, and they're standing on some ice down here. Beautiful antlers. If we have the ability to get off this river near the off ice and come up over the edge and get a good shot, we're going to try that. We don't know whether we'll be successful because off ice and the rapids, it's pretty difficult to land a raft.
We're going to move.
I don't think they've seen us yet. Wow, look at, they're heading towards the river. If we get a crossing, that's going to be fabulous. That would be a great thing to see. This is really nice, isn't it? These are beautiful animals, and look how they spread out so that they all have a good view. They've just turned around, they're running towards us. This is what's so incredible. Look at it, they're literally running at us.
Look how large their antlers are.
And when they stop, they all get the front row seats. That's what's so amazing about these animals. They're so adapted to long distance running. Now look at that. Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Ah, it's just like flowing water. That is as beautiful as it gets. Wow, what drama. That was so beautiful to see all the same forms with the water. That is sheer drama. Look at the power of getting out of that water.
Yeah, look at the muscles.
And then they came towards us again.
That's a good one.
It's almost like a platoon of soldiers. Yeah. I love these caribou. I mean, they give you a lot of opportunity, and they're so uniform. I mean, look at that. Yeah. Every antler is so huge.
I love their dark eyes, too. The ring
Yeah.
on their eyes.
Yeah, they all look like they've been in fights and lost. The way the sand has filled in the lower portions of these grooves in the ice. And it's just beautiful patterns repeated throughout this entire surface. On a day when the clouds have really shrouded these mountains and I can't find any caribou, I love to find and get lost into the abstract world. It's interesting to me how nature repeats itself on various levels. Right now, the patterns remind me exactly of the graceful curves within the antlers of the caribou. And when I photograph really fine details on the carpet of the tundra, there's also a lichen called caribou lichen that is almost identical to the shape of the antlers itself. So these Arctic rivers aren't known for their rapids, but this is a pretty good set.
Yeah, this is the biggest set of rapids on the river, and that's why we came up here to scout it out a little bit before we just blindly went into it. guys ready to get wet?
That was beautiful. That was beautiful.
It's amazing to me when you start flying over this land and you start to see the trails of the caribou etched into the soil. And in some cases, it's probably a foot or more deep. And these trails are really ageless. It's almost like an eloquent writing of the caribou onto the land itself.
Absolutely. And they are playing out an ancient rhythm that has gone on for thousands and thousands of years.
Caribou migrate a long way.
Yeah, it's incredible. They actually, the porcupine caribou herd travels farther than any other terrestrial mammal.
Wow.
And they travel an average of 2,500 miles a year.
So they'll come all the way through these mountains back into the National Wildlife Refuge to drop their young.
That's what they do. They go to the coastal plain to birth their calves. They share this birthing ground with millions of migratory birds who also lay eggs and hatch their young right there on the coastal plain.
The Arctic Plain, really on a clear day, is quite an extraordinary sight because you look to the south towards the Berkshire Range and you got this skyline of glacier-clad peaks, and to the north it's just this white thin line of ice that lies along the ocean edge. And in between is the Arctic Plain, this giant nursery. Great. It's midnight up here in the Arctic, in the land of the midnight sun, and there's a huge herd of caribou moving across the slope, and they're just seemingly floating across. It's so sinuous, this line of caribou. It's a great subject for this camera. It seems at times that every square foot of this tundra has a subject, from the micro world of the lichens and the mosses to the small birds that make their nests within this carpet of the tundra. Right in front of me, I have a beautiful nest of Lapland longspurs and 5 little babies, so perfectly camouflaged within the complexity of the tundra. I'm moving in really quick and getting a quick shot. This is really great. There's 3 Arctic ground squirrel babies. They're just very blasé to my presence, which is the best time to start to get really nice behavior. One of the best shots is when they all stand up on their back legs and they look around. There's a nice catchlight in the eye. There's no wind. It's a very even overcast. It's perfect conditions. We're at a great spot right now. We've come low enough on the Congacud River that now this entire valley has broadened out. Just beyond these last foothills lies the great coastal plain. So these caribou are coming out of all the side channels, migrating right past our camp, up and over these ridges and out onto the plain.
There's got to be at least 500 bull caribou going up this slope. It's just fantastic. Just great.
Alaska's North Slope is a vast area. At this time, 94% of it has already been handed over for oil drilling and other types of industrial development.
94%?
94% of it.
Wow.
If we allow oil drilling and industrial development on the remaining piece, the small piece of the coastal plain in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, we will be losing a tremendous piece of America's heritage.
I think the Brooks Range in the Arctic Plain really exemplifies true wilderness. This is the place I think of when I think of the word wilderness. It's the coldest, windiest, highest, and driest continent on the planet. It's a landscape shaped by wind, rock, and ice. This is Antarctica, a place like nowhere else on Earth. I'm Art Wolfe. Join me on Travels to the Edge. Before exploring Antarctica, the planet's southernmost continent, I couldn't resist a quick stop in the remote Falkland Islands, which lie east of the tip of South America. Surrounded by the cold South Atlantic, the Falkland Islands are an isolated sanctuary for marine mammals and birds that thrive in these high latitudes. I'm on a very remote island off the northeast corner of the Falkland Islands known as Steeple Jason. This island has never been inhabited by man, and consequently it is absolutely covered in black-browed albatrosses. Tens of thousands of pairs nest on this island. One of the nice things that I experience while I'm sitting here photographing these albatrosses is the sensation of these birds coming directly overhead as they're landing or catching the currents. Some albatrosses literally circumnavigate the globe between nesting seasons. So they're birds that are born to fly, and they only come ashore once during the nesting season. Otherwise, these birds are on the wing, off the land, and out over the air currents. Although their numbers are declining, this is still the largest black-browed albatross rookery in the world. Literally hundreds of thousands of birds are nesting in this sprawling plain all the way to the sea. And to photograph it, I'm choosing to shoot patterns. Basically shooting the repetition of every bird shape that is evenly spaced across this plain. These isolated islands present a unique opportunity to get close to one of the world's rarest raptors. I've got a great shot right now of this caracara, which is a striated caracara, also known as a Johnny Rook. This is an opportunistic bird of prey that is always looking for the exposed egg or the unattended baby. I'm shooting it with a wide-angle lens, and I'm really bringing in this beautiful rugged coastline, the beautiful deep blues of the ocean, the surrounding black-browed albatrosses, and it just makes a great shot. As evening approaches, tens of thousands of nesting birds settle in for the night.
Here at the very end of the day, light is coming really at an oblique angle to these very calm black-browed albatross. It's really beautiful dark sky in the distance, and it's just the perfect shot to end the day.
From the Falkland Islands, we're heading 600 miles farther south across the notorious Drake Passage to Antarctica.
I've just spent the last 2 days at sea crossing the Drake Passage, and now the rewards, Antarctica. It is amazing. Fantastic light. Really, really excited to be here.
I've asked Jeff Renner for a primer on the geologic history of this frozen landmass.
So what can you tell me about the Antarctic Peninsula in particular?
Well, being a geologist, I look to the rocks primarily, and one of the earliest geologists down there did identify the Antarctic Peninsula as an extension of the Andes. In fact, it was called the Antarctandes. The geology of the Andes is similar to the geology which is in the peninsula. It's dormant here, it's finished now. The volcanic activity is finished, but it was a volcanic island arc.
Would you consider Antarctica a desert?
Well, by definition, a desert is not necessarily temperature controlled, but it's the amount of precipitation. And sure enough, Antarctica is classed as perhaps the driest. It's a cold desert as against a hot desert. The snowfall where we are, it's maritime, so you may be getting 15 to 20 feet of snow a year. Not so on the mainland, the East Antarctica. Their snowfall may be only half an inch or so a year. But the difference there is that it doesn't go. It stays, it accumulates, and then it gradually turns to ice and then flows outward from the interior to carve off through the glaciers, and you gradually get this huge mass of floating ice. That is an ice shelf.
I'm often asked, what is my favorite place to photograph on Earth? And without hesitation, I always respond Antarctica and South Georgia Island. Virtually anywhere I take my camera and aim it, I've got a great image, whether it's the ice and the beautiful way the light reflects off the water and these beautiful mountains. Got a small rookery of Gentoo penguins sitting on this rock promontory with this beautiful backdrop of a glacier. All these Gentoo penguins are incubating eggs, and they've made a nest literally out of tiny pebbles. There are no grasses, there are no sticks down here in the Antarctica, so they make do with what they've got. All day long, they steal rock after rock after rock until the nest that they're stealing from no longer has rock. Stone thief, stone thief. Look at that bird. There's no pride in these birds. They'll come over 10 feet away, steal the rock that this bird has really worked hard to steal from other birds. You've always got to keep your eye on these guys. You never know when they're going to sneak up behind you and steal things out of your pack. I've got a very interesting shot here. It's of Gentoo penguins nesting on a rock in the distance, and in the foreground I'm incorporating the bones of a humpback whale, which undoubtedly was harvested during the heyday of the whaling industry that really was centered here in the Antarctic during the beginning of the last century. One of the interesting birds that lives here is the blue-eyed shag. It's actually a cormorant that also feeds in the krill-rich waters here in these very, very cold seas. The distinctive thing about the blue-eyed shag is the blue eye, and it is such a beautiful color. It's almost a deep cobalt blue that rings the eye. Well, this is exactly what I was hoping to get, which is a really nice framing of this mountain now with these very abstract, almost magical icicles hanging down, and each icicle has a little frozen drop. Oh, this is beautiful.
As remote as this continent is, it hasn't escaped the influence of man. History professor Tim Bowman describes the early history of whaling here.
What do you know about the whaling industry down here? I mean, when did it start and what was the extent of it?
Well, whaling began in the Antarctic in a serious way in 1904 when C.A. Larson established a base in South Georgia, but it affected the whole of the Antarctic region. And over a period of time, there were huge numbers of whales were taken until the industry basically shut down. What we're looking at in terms of numbers is over 1 million killed whales. And if you want to take that 1 million whale figure and make it real, look out over the ocean. If you're anywhere down here, look into the bay. We have a bay behind us right now. Look out there. Do you see a spout? I'm telling you, in 1904, you'd have had a hard time counting the spouts. You could have walked ashore on the backs of the whales.
I'm intrigued by the way the residue of the whaling industry is disintegrating and aging, lichens attached to this metal as it breaks down. And there's a lot of textures and colors that I find very intriguing. I really love the way these rivets have really exploded and disintegrated as the cold and the ice works its way into the recesses, and they just explode. During the process of thawing and freezing, it just really wreaks havoc on metal. And as cracks appear, lichens establish a foothold, and the whole thing now becomes a study of texture and color, and that's really what I'm after. These zodiacs are absolutely perfect for this environment. They have the ability just to be like mini icebreakers, pushing through the ice, getting us into great, great positions. The thing that I think defines Antarctica more than anything is ice. And behind me is a classic iceberg. And unlike any iceberg I've photographed before, this one is full of icicles. And it presents a new subject in a beautiful, ethereal way. This is about as dynamic an environment as you'd find anywhere. And everything's changing. Nothing stays the same. All the configurations of the icebergs are constantly moving around in these currents. I could just stay here and shoot all day long. There's several Weddell seal pups just frolicking in and amongst the ice that's building up along the shore. They're very, very young, and yet, even at this age, they're practicing behaviors that will really serve them well as adults. So sparring and engaging and always trying to get the upper hand with their other baby will teach them the necessary skills as adults to really survive in this really difficult and harsh environment. Really nice, gentle expression, which is just the perfect counter to this really hostile world. He's very curious. He's just playing like all babies would, completely unafraid of us. And he's coming in closer. He's gonna come in, hello. And I'm staying very low, so he's really, really curious. And wow, just beautiful. It's those moments throughout my career that I take home and I'll remember the rest of my life. Those nice, engaging moments between photographer and subject where there's just this bond of trust. And it's really what it's about. This is a classic Antarctic scene. Adelie penguins sitting on ice right along the shore. I've got icebergs in behind them that are really distinctive in their shapes, and then really dramatic clouds in the distance, these lenticular clouds, which are really indicative of high winds in the atmosphere. It is truly Antarctica. There are 17 different species of penguins. The Adelie, like the emperor, are truly birds of the ice. They are at the most upstaged by penguins. I got a really nice pair of Adelie penguins just sitting there, and the way their flippers, if I move my camera ever so much, it's like they're holding hands. Right now I've got a beautiful shot of a single penguin, and I'm framing it through an iceberg on the beach that has a natural hole in it. So it's really a nice way of looking at a penguin in yet, again, a different way. I've got a beautiful pattern of about 60 Adelie penguins, and their black and white coloration is really, really striking in this late afternoon light. Oh, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Oh, and here's one coming in. Oh, there they go. Wow. I feel like a fox in a chicken coop here. There's so much to shoot. I love the patterns of the ice, the late afternoon light, the austerity of this place, for me, is magnificent. Oh, wait a minute, look at this. Great, just keep heading towards this iceberg. There's a great iceberg we're approaching, and as the light gets lower, the icicles hanging off the overhang really are catching the light. 6 to 7/10 of this iceberg lies below the surface of this water. And that's what's so deceiving about it. Oh, this is a great shot right now. All the icicles are really highlighted by the light, and I've got a nice gray backdrop. Wow. If this doesn't exemplify Antarctica, I don't know what else does. My mission as a photographer is really to translate the environment. I love to challenge myself to record the environment, to show people maybe the Antarctic they've never seen before. South Georgia Island is bitterly cold, wild, inhospitable, and yet it has one of the largest concentrations of wildlife found anywhere. And it's my favorite place on Earth. I'm Art Wolfe. Join me on Travels to the Edge. The southernmost tip of South America is Cape Horn. Antarctica lies 800 miles to the south.
The remote island of South Georgia lies to the east of these two continents, exposed to the full fury of the Southern Ocean. Joining me on this journey is one of the world's foremost authorities on seabirds, Peter Harrison, and explorer and naturalist Shirley Metz. This is the wildest island I can think of.
There are only a few hundred people in the world that have ever circumnavigated this island because it's a fearful place.
Take us around this coastline.
This is as wild as it gets in South Georgia. We will feel as though we are in Antarctica, true and proper.
Tell me about this area.
It was here that Shackleton came in after his 800-mile journey. To this day, is still gasping at the open boat journey of 800 miles.
What do you think is in store for us?
Maybe 2.5 to 3 days of rolling around in the windiest, stormiest ocean on the world.
Run into a first-class storm with 30-foot seas. Albatrosses are being tossed around. Very, very dramatic, but I am getting some great shots. If ever a place said primordial, it has to be South Georgia, especially in this pre-dawn light. The sounds, the smells, the sights of all these penguins and elephant seals. This is the place that I love to come back to year in, year out. It's really early in the morning and the light hasn't quite gotten up to where I can really start to do my work. So I like to walk around with my subjects and figure out a place to photograph them. Let's go down to the beach, get some photos. We'll have a little lunch. A lot of penguins here.
Biggest colony in the world of king penguins. A few years ago, we only had, say, 200,000 king penguin pairs on South Georgia. Now, over 400,000 pairs of king penguins.
Why do you think they're increasing at such an amazing rate?
Well, I think the Earth is warming, and the warmer ocean around South Georgia, the pullback of all of these glaciers and so on, it has benefited the king penguin.
I'm like a kid in a candy store. There's so much to work with. If a committee of designers got together, I don't think they could have designed a more beautiful bird. Golden yellow stands out so regally against the silver. Silver and gold in a beautiful shape on the top of these birds. And it's just so fun to work with the color and the design of them. What I tried to do after having established a sense of place to these birds is find the details. It's those little moments that you capture on film that you bring away that really play nicely with the larger perspective. These are amazing, these elephant seals. They are so enormous, multi-tonned animals that come ashore to rest and to give birth to little seals, and these are actually mid-sized males right now. They're just incredible how high they can reach. They can stand up much taller than me, and then they spar like this. They're sparring, they're interacting. There's little babies all over the place. They make absolutely gross sounds. They're amazing animals. When I go into a new environment, I like to shoot an establishing shot with a really wide angle. I love working with overcast light. Right now, I've got the best of both worlds. I've got overcast light, but blue sky behind. Very, very placid, calm morning, which is really an unusual event on South Georgia. Right now, everybody's calm, I'm calm, it's peaceful.
This is the only island in the world where you can actually come and sit with wandering albatrosses.
Peter, this is a big bird. Tell me about this bird.
Well, it's not only big, Art, it is the biggest flying bird in the world. There's nothing that is bigger. Males weigh about 24 to 25 pounds in weight. That's a Thanksgiving turkey size, but with wings,
Wow.
11 to even 12 feet from wingtip to
12
wingtip.
feet, two
Yep.
basketball players side by side.
I guess that's right. I can fit under one wing there, and they'd still have a few inches on me.
Very long-lived birds.
Long-lived, longer than I am. I'm 60 years old. That bird on the right could be 70 years old.
70. And
not only that, these birds, when they fly 500 to 600 miles in a single day. When the youngster leaves this nest, goes out onto the ocean for the first time, spends the first 7 years minimum at sea, by the time it gets back, it will have flown 1.5 million miles. In its lifetime, these birds are estimated to fly some 15 million miles. That's around 18 round-trip journeys to the moon and back. Nothing flies further than an albatross. Sadly, they are threatened. In the 20-odd years that I've been coming here, we've had numbers on South Georgia plummet from 4,000 birds now down to less than 1,800 birds. We've lost half in about 25 years.
Fur seals present a formidable challenge for photography here on the island because they're so aggressive. These southern fur seals were nearly hunted to extinction in the early 1900s. In fact, they thought they were extinct. And since the early 1900s, they've gone from maybe 30 animals to 2 million in such a short time. One of the most extraordinary comebacks of any animal species. And right now, these animals have come back with a vengeance. They're extraordinarily aggressive, very territorial. They bite. They will charge you from 100 feet away. I've had tripod legs sheared off. And a force to be reckoned with. Shirley, it's amazing how this south coast of South Georgia is so much more glaciated and rugged looking.
Oh, very much so. And this is where Shackleton ended up coming after his 800-mile journey. He arrived here in King Haakon Bay. He spends about 4 or 5 days here, gets resupplied, nails the nails to the bottom of the soles of his feet, and then makes the journey up over the spine of South Georgia to the other side. 36 hours across the glaciers over mountains that were never ever traveled before, not mapped, not explored, no food up in the mountains, so they had to take all of that with them.
Incredible story.
Yes, I don't think very much replicated at all still today, and that's when men were men.
An incredible journey and an amazing rescue, given the fact that nobody died on his entire trip.
That was always something that Shackleton claimed, that no man was ever lost under my command.
This is a freshwater lake left over from a receding glacier. And in this lake are hundreds of young weaners, elephant seals that were born probably a month or so ago. And they've been fed on very, very rich milk from their mothers, and now the mothers have gone out to sea to replenish their nutrients. But for right now, these pups are jousting and playing and just hanging out in this very benign water. Great shot from about 3 feet away, wide angle. I've approached them from very low. They're curious animals. If you want to get unusual shots, you get into unusual positions. And by staying low, letting them look into my lens, they'll come right up and I get these distorted wide angles, which can often be fantastic. And I love these kind of perspectives because if you just stand up from 5 feet up, looking 30 feet away, it looks like you're looking at these animals. And now I want to kind of interpret their landscape, interpret their environment, and you do that by getting into their environment on their level. These guys are known as weaners simply because they've been weaned from their mothers, and when they see somebody like me laying on the beach, they may in fact think I'm mother. So they come in close, and I just love this interaction with these wild animals, and I'm careful not to touch them. Hey, come here. Come on, you want it, you want it. Oh, there we go. Now, he's so curious. Is he gonna touch my lens? Don't touch my lens. Oh. Yeah, if you blow snot on my lens. Ah, that's what I said. Don't do that. Ah, excuse me. Now look at it. That's you. Do you trust me? Do you think I look like your mother? That's it, baby. Your diamonds. More feeling. Oh, yeah. It's miserable outside, blowing rain, it's cold, And yet some of the best shots I've ever shot are in these very conditions. Right now I have a small group of macaroni penguins that have just emerged from the sea, and I'm bundled up one of the few times not using a tripod because I'm just maneuvering the camera every couple of seconds. Now if a wave comes up and totally soaks me, it'll be well worth it because these are beautiful shots. Really, really nice. Even a reflection in a little pond, and there's a fur seal right behind them. So they've hopped right into me, and they're coming right up me, and goodbye. This is up close and personal because this fur seal has scared them. So they're not so concerned about me as much as the fur seal. This is a very windy day here, and I cannot find any penguins or seals on this really remote beach. But what I can find are some beautiful landscapes, but on a very intimate level. What I'm framing up here is just a close study of these beautiful lichens that thrive here in these very cold conditions on South Georgia Island. They're among the oldest, slowest growing plants on Earth. I love this. I mean, it's great for the mind. And when you're photographing wildlife, you're so caught up in following the action. But here, your mind can relax. You can really get into the moment. Well, you sure know a lot of history about this place.
Well, I come maybe 2 or 3 times a year, and every time we always come to Grytviken, the site of the largest of our whaling stations, and there is a lot of history here. Grytviken was the first of the whaling stations here at South Georgia, and it was started off in 1904. Now, what you have to imagine, Art, is that Cumberland Bay at that time was full of whales, and I mean full. Not like a whale here or there. I'm talking of hundreds and hundreds of whales. Wow. They never left the bay. They caught hundreds and hundreds of whales. All they had to do was to row out, put the harpoon in the whale, and bring the scrot, that's what a dead whale is called, back into the harbor. By the 50s, the whales were getting harder and harder to catch. These same boats that caught whales just in this bay, now they were going over 200 miles from this island to find whales. Wow. Actually ended around 1965, 1966.
So about 55 years.
55 years. The combined whaling stations of South Georgia took 175,250 whales. They ranged from the biggest, the blue, to the rarest down in these waters, which was the southern right whale. Nothing escaped the harpoons here.
This is also the final resting place for a famous person.
Shackleton finally came to rest here. He died in the bay here. His men erected a cross on the hill. He told his wife, "My heart is always in the south." And if you go to the graveyard, you'll see that every single grave is buried with the head facing north to Europe. Sir Ernest Shackleton, the boss, is the only person with his head and his heart facing south to the continent he loved, called Antarctica.
What a fitting place for him to be. I was walking down the beach and I just happened to see this great opportunity. There's a family of fur seals, several females, and an adult bull. Really nice moment with these otherwise very aggressive seals. 3 pups. 2 are the typical black, and 1 is this beautiful cream color. 1 in 2,000 occur with this color face right in front of us. What's nice about this is the seal pup's eyes are so black, it's a great contrast. The shots that I'm looking for are when the baby and the mother's heads come together and there's a little moment of nurturing, and it just really plays well to the camera.
Despite its isolation and extreme climate, South Georgia Island remains a remarkable oasis of wildlife. There's simply no other place like it in the world.
I'm Art Wolfe. Join me next time on Travels to the Edge.